Hey guys, welcome back to We Met at Acme. I'm so excited to be here with Payton Sartain.
Oh,
How
I'm
are
so happy to
you?
be here.
This is such a long time coming. I
I know.
remember when we met at the first Dear Media IRL in Austin. I was like sitting by the pool and this like adorable blonde comes and sits down and you're with your mom,
Yes.
who's also a babe.
hmm
And you had just gone through, like, literally, I think it was like the day before a breakup
Yeah.
with your now boyfriend, which we'll get to.
Yes.
And I think we started talking about it like right away.
Yeah, I don't remember when that was. We
Mhm.
actually broke up like in December. Well, yeah, December of 2022.
Mhm.
So that was 2023. I don't remember when that was in 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll figure out all the timelines, all the things. Before we get into anything, what is your favorite romantic gesture?
So I'm an acts of service person. I will
too.
say one thing that my boyfriend has always done, specifically when we were long distance, is order me like dinner, just surprise me with like, I was living in LA for a long time, so like he surprised me with like sugarfish or something, and I was like, this
That's
is my
really
favorite.
cute.
It's like a nice kind of took care of me moment.
Yeah. But how did he exactly manage it? Because for me, like I'm like already, I've got my dinner plan. Like I'm harder to surprise. So was he just like, don't worry about dinner tonight?
Yeah, he would surprise me, and honestly, sometimes he would like surprise me, and I would have already ordered something. But I like wouldn't tell him obviously. 'Cause I don't wanna, like, ruin his.
Yeah,
little,
you'll save
like,
it for
his
tomorrow.
fun. Yeah.
That's really sweet.
It didn't work out sometimes, but it was always a nice gesture.
Yeah. And you are a Capricorn, if I remember
Capricorn,
correctly.
yeah.
When is his sign?
He's a Gemini.
Okay, his name is Joe.
Joe
The Gemini.
Yeah.
And how did you guys originally meet?
So we met on a dating app back in the beginning of 2020.
Was it Raya?
Okay. And it was like right when 2020 kind of started, I feel like me and my single girlfriends, which is pretty much all of my girlfriends in Los Angeles at least, we would just like be on our couches, just like drinking wine and like calling boys up, talking to boys on apps. Like it was just like a fun hobby almost.
Yeah.
And then I started talking to Joe, and I'm not a big texter. I definitely like didn't prioritize men in my life, even the ones I had like been in a relationship with, to be honest. So I remember one of my friends actually pointed out, she was like, "You're texting that guy like back, like kind of a lot. Like y'all are talking, I'm like, well, he's saying stuff I want to respond to, you know?"
Right.
So we spoke on FaceTime. I didn't imagine in this era of my life that I'd be in a single relationship, a serious relationship. And then I was in Scottsdale, kind of in like, I would say April of 2020. Me and my friends had gotten a house because we were so sick of Los Angeles being like, we were just in apartments there. So we got like an Airbnb in Scottsdale. I ended up telling him I was in town. He just came and met me at the house, and the rest is history.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And he is an athlete.
Yes, he plays Major League Baseball. He did when I met him. He was playing in DC at the time, and then now he's playing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Was it your first time dating an athlete? And like, what was that like as opposed to dating like a civilian, normal person?
So I've never dated, like, actually the word civilian is funny that you used there because my first boyfriend I ever had was in the military.
Oh, no way.
He was in college at like a military academy. He left when he was a Marine. And then the guy I dated when I was like 24 was a college athlete and became a professional athlete while we were dating, and we actually like broke up like pretty immediately. Because it's a hard life, and if you don't like really love someone, like it's just like kind of you're not going to put in the time and effort. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I met Joe when I was 26, so I dated him after. But I'd always dated guys whose like careers were their entire world.
Right, like you're dating lots of guys on the go here.
Yes, like a lot of. I always respect that too. I come from a family, my dad was a fighter pilot most of my life, so I'd never really seen specifically men have a career where they like went to work and then they came home and were just like a normal guy.
Yeah.
Like my entire life was built around my dad's career. We moved a bunch. He went into combat numerous times. So like my entire life was defined by my dad's career. So it isn't weird for me like when I date men like this, it doesn't even occur to me like, oh,
right,
this is kind of strange. You know what I mean?
And how did it work with your parents growing up? Did your mom like, before they got married, was this his career? Did she like kind of go with him to these different?
Well, I'm from Texas. We actually were stationed in Florida at first, and my mom was 21 when she had me. they were engaged, but they were not married when she found out she was pregnant. So she actually left college for my dad's like first like basic training kind of thing. Actually, it wasn't basic training. It was flight school. So he was there doing that actually in Texas. My mom then ended up leaving college for his first kind of like positioning in Florida. So she just like was pregnant and was like, okay, I guess we're doing this.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. That's very. What's the movie that just came out with Tom Cruise?
Top Gun.
Yeah, it's very Top Gun
Mhm.
of them.
Of them, yeah.
And okay, so you meet Joe and you guys fall in love.
Mhm.
And it like, how long were you together before you broke up? Like kind of a long time.
A while. And I
Yeah.
will say, like, I met him, and I also, like, after I met him, he was a surprise. Like, I knew I liked talking to him. We would FaceTime. It was like silly, goofy mood, kind of like single girls in Los Angeles, my friends and I having a good time. And men have always been like, for me, they were always more of like a hobby. So like I had my work, I had my friends, and then like men existed for me from 5 p.m. on a Friday to like Sunday morning maybe.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then it was my friend time. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So when I met Joe, I didn't really expect much, but we very quickly were like, oh shit, like we really like each other. And neither of us had been in a relationship for a while. But I will say when we first met, the night we met, we hooked up the first night we ever met. And that actually solidified it for me. That made me like him more.
Well, that's the dangerous part about it.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
hey. But it wasn't, I had been in situations where I'd hooked up with guys and just been like, I was notorious for being like, don't ever speak to me again. Like, this is not my thing. But with him, that was different for me. It made me like him a lot more. And then he never made it a thing to be like, you hooked up with me the first. Like, I liked him for also
like
not
he
giving a
pursued
shit.
you regardless
Absolutely.
after that.
Didn't care at all. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you guys were doing well for a long time. And like, you know, part of why I was so excited to speak to you is because you're like the exception. You guys broke up and you got back together and it's going great. And
so far, so we dated long distance for a year and a half. I then moved with him to, he got an off-season location in Dallas, and I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, and my family's still there.
yeah.
So when sorry, my allergies are like,
No, it's okay. We
going
just
crazy.
off camera.
Yeah,
I just gave Payton to Zyrtec, so
I walked in,
hopefully,
I'm like, my eyes are so swollen.
hopefully they'll kick in soon.
No, I moved with him to an off-season location. I have always been the person to be like, okay, if we're moving somewhere for your season, like I would like to choose where we live in the off-season. So he agreed to move to Texas. He actually ended up buying a house in Dallas for my best friend. So we were really engulfed in that. And then we lived in Washington, D.C. for one of his baseball seasons. He was playing there for a while. And then after that, he ended up getting injured pretty seriously. And well, during that season, he got injured and had a pretty serious surgery. He was not playing for over 20 months, essentially 2 full seasons. And him and I were living in LA. We had to leave the Dallas, life behind because of his injury. He had surgery in Los Angeles. His recovery was in Los Angeles. So we were like, whatever, like, I guess we just won't ever live in Dallas. He ended up selling that house. This all happened in a year. We lived together for 1 year and this all happened. And then he just came home one day, our breakup, because I assume that's like, we'll go through the process. We had talked about rings. We had talked about, he had bought this home at this point. He still had
And
it.
how old were both of you at the time?
I was about to turn 29.
Okay.
And I'm 30 now. But he just came home one day and was just, I could tell he was under a lot of stress. And it's kind of a thing in sports that most of my girlfriends who are married to professional athletes, they did break up at some point, and a lot of it's injury related. So he just came home one day and was like, I don't think I can support the life that you want. I'm high maintenance. So he had, had a lot of trouble. He didn't really know where his career was going. He just was having like a moment. And then we broke up, and it ended up being Christmas time. So like I went home, and we did live in the same apartment for like a month and a half.
Oof.
But I was gone a lot.
Yeah.
Like I came here, I went to Paris.
Right.
I did the whole like getting out of the apartment thing. But that was a really, really rough month.
Did you not I feel like my first instinct would be like, we can get through this.
Absolutely.
You don't have to spend a cent on me. And hold on, let me just get a sweater because I just got cold.
Oh, you're good.
like, I feel like I'd be, and maybe this is embarrassing for me, but like, if you were that, about to get rings, like, I'd be like, no, 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 what can we do?
Yeah.
We have to make this work.
So I did that. I'm definitely not one to be like, oh, you don't have to spend a cent on me.
Yeah,
I am high maintenance.
But no. But like in the interim,
Yes.
if you're feeling
you're, like,
down on your
panicking,
luck,
I definitely was like, I saw a side of him that I hadn't seen before, and I knew he was struggling, but men don't necessarily communicate when they're feeling those things. So at some point I tried to mend it, but I will say once he moved to go to Arizona because he was doing his rehabilitation. He was still injured at this point, and he was injured throughout the whole next season, basically. So I could see why he was nervous, just because like it does make you question when things like this happen in sports. It does make you question like, how long is this going to last, and what's next, or like whatever. And he was
and
really,
like, what do I have other than this?
And again, I'm not going to act like I'm some down to earth person.
Well, okay, elaborate on this high maintenance. Like, what are we talking about here? You need like a new bag every week?
No. I'm not I'm not materialistic in that sense, but like I know the life I would like my children to have, and I'm 30, so I'm like, I'm not like, it's not like a tight thing where like they have to have these specific things, but I do want them to have a great education. I do want them to travel. I do want to feel comfortable. I don't want to feel nervous, because there were points in my life, in my earlier, childhood, that my dad was going to war and also getting paid like essentially less than a teacher's salary. And we lived on Air Force bases, and I was just always nervous around money. And while I do make my own and do my own thing, I do expect a lot of the men that I'm with, because I'm also like, y'all have been making money, like y'all had bank accounts for a long time, and like women just got that right like 40 years ago.
Exactly.
So I'm like, I do expect a lot of the men. I'm like, what were you doing this whole time if you aren't making money? I'm also very aware of what happens during like pregnancy. You're kind of indisposed sometimes. Things could go wrong. So I'm just like, I do expect to be taken care of, but not in a way that's like he has to buy me a new bag all the time. It's more just like providing comfort.
I think that's fair. And I also think it's like amazing how self-aware you are about like where that came from. And I think that's really normal. And when you describe it like that, like I actually don't think that's high maintenance. Like what you're asking for is stability.
I think that I just say a lot. I'll say that if I say that out loud, typically men will label it high maintenance. So I just kind of like own it. I'm like, I'm high maintenance, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, like, sorry, I want like my
this is
kid
what I
to
want.
learn.
Yeah. And if I have a choice, I'm going to make that decision for my children before I have them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I would like to set them up. And I think that being 30 has allowed me to like the clarity to like plan.
So do you think that there was a part of him, and like I'm sure you guys have had in-depth conversations about it since. Do you think that there was a part of him that was like, I'm not enough for you, and I am scared that like, what if I'm useless? Like, what if I don't heal from my injury, and like, you're gonna walk away from me anyway, so I'm gonna end this before you can?
It could have been that. I think that men probably go through that kind of thing a lot, no matter what their job is. I think there's a lot of insecurity because of what's expected of them. And I'm not saying that I don't respect that. You know what I mean? I don't respect their, insecurity or fear around that, because it is a lot of pressure. We're all under pressure in different ways. That is pressure. I do apply that pressure, but like, I do think what I saw from him on the back end was just overwhelm. Because initially when we broke up, I was very confused, obviously, because he had hit it so well, and he didn't want to be like a bother, basically. And when we broke up, I tried to mend things within like the month that we were kind of around each other. But the second he left to go move for spring training and to start his season, I muted his stuff on social media. We did not speak. We basically didn't talk at all for 9 months.
So you went cold turkey, no communication.
Because I was very, very upset, like very, very upset. But I also knew like I had done all that I could. I made myself look very vulnerable in front of him, and very like I had never really put myself out there to feel stupid in front of someone.
So you felt like you needed to take back that confidence.
I just felt like I actually had done a podcast episode with one of my best friends. And we were in the studio actually, and we talked about breakups because people were wanting that topic, and I hadn't been through a breakup, like a serious one before.
Right.
My heart had never really been broken. So I had my friend Kimberly on, and she was talking about it, and I actually like went back to that and listened to that episode for what she said. And she was like, the most important thing is like, you're gonna feel like shit, but you need to like cut off communication.
It is the most important.
You have to clear your thoughts. And like, even if at that point, like, even if I did, because I still was like, well, we're probably going to get back together, I would assume, because we've never felt this way about anyone. We've never been in love before, really. But then I was like, well, everyone thinks that. So here's the thing. If, in my head, I'm talking to myself, if you do want to get back together with him, or if you don't, the only choice you can make now is to like take care of yourself. Even though it's painful, you tried your best, you tried to mend it. He made his decision. So if he wants to break up with you, then give him a breakup.
Right.
Like, we need to really break up, because that's the only way we'd even know, like, oh, that was the right decision.
Totally.
Or the wrong decision.
I mean, it's like a be careful what you wish for. Like, if he's like, I want this, like, if I always say, like, if a guy's like, I want space, go to the fucking moon.
Yeah.
Like, show him.
And it's
like, give him.
painful. I will say it feels wrong, and it felt wrong when I was doing it. But I knew, like, I had to go on almost like autopilot. Like, I couldn't listen to my own emotions. You know what I mean? Because I was spiraling. Like, it was bad. Because I was very shocked and surprised by this breakup. I hadn't seen the signs. So then I start questioning myself, like, did you not know this person? Did you know this person? Like, were you right? Were you wrong? I do think I had the correct perception of what was going on. But I think emotionally I was very, very stressed. And I was just like, all right, well, you have to go autopilot. Me has to just like do what I know I should do, even though it felt so painful.
I mean, it's so hard also because you're at that point very intertwined with each other's lives, friends. Like, I imagine you were following his friends. He was following your friends.
His family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so how do you not keep tabs on this person while you're going cold turkey, not speaking to them?
Yeah.
How do you not hear the noise of like Joe hooked up with the girl Lucy, the other whatever?
So I didn't necessarily know who he was hooking up with. He was living in Arizona. So he was separate, and he was like with friends on like a new team. And his friends all live in like Northern California, basically, like all of his friends from home. And then his baseball adjacent friends, like the guys he's played with since he was like young, they all lived in LA. So I would see them actually like the month after we broke up. I actually came here and was hanging out with two of his girlfriends from high school who we knew each other really well. And when I came here, they're like, hey, let's hang out. And I'm like, you know, me and Joe broke up. They're like, we don't give a fuck. Like, come hang out with us. So we were still like, we knew about what was going on with each other. I saw, like, obviously I'm checking his following. He's following a bunch of girls, like initially after the breakup. And it does hurt, like my ego at least was hurt. I did keep tabs that way, and I definitely saw that. But otherwise, I socially didn't hear much about him. And I muted him on social media. He doesn't post a lot anyway. He's not like an avid, like, poster or like storyer or whatever. But I didn't check, like, I knew what team he was playing for. I wasn't like checking that kind of stuff. I just knew he was in Arizona, and I did not speak to him really, minus like maybe a couple texts of him being like, hey, you have mail at our old place. And me just like thumbs upping it because I just didn't want to get in that conversation.
Right, smart.
We were very separated.
Is he your same age?
He's a year older than me.
Okay.
Yeah, basically.
And so what was the catalyst? Like, what brought you guys to talking again that made you think, like, I'd consider?
So I do think, like, there was a process to getting back together, and I think there's a process, in my opinion, because at this point, we don't know if we did it correctly, because at this point, we are in a great place now, and a lot has changed since that day he came home and broke up with me out of literally nowhere. But I guess we've just grown a lot through the breakup. But us getting back together basically was prompted by he just texted me and was talking to me like we were friends. And he had done that for like a week. And I finally was like not really answering because I'm just like, it's been 9 months. Like, I'm trying to move on. This is actually also the week this happened. I was like, you know what, you should do, even though it might be awkward because you might see his friends around or whatever, but you should do like the real mass unfollowing. Like, you should really move on. Because it's been 9 months. I was still crushed. And I think heartbreak, your first ever heartbreak does, like, you will always look back at it and be like, that was very painful. But I was ready to be like, all right, we need to move forward, like in a big way, just mentally. So he had been texting me, and I'm a very straightforward person. So when he did that, I was like, what are you doing? Basically, like, we're not friends. We're never going to be friends. And we're not pen pals. Like, don't act like this is normal. We haven't been speaking.
Right.
And I remember he basically was like, well, is it not obvious what I'm doing? And I'm like, no, it's not obvious. And you need to be communicative and very open about what your intentions are, basically.
Right.
And I remember I was just like sitting in a bar and I was with one of my best friends and he texted me, not like a long message or anything like that, but it was just like, I'm in love with you. I've always been in love with you. I was just going through a really hard time and I haven't really known how to approach and I haven't really known what your response was going to be. Like he's a little bit scared of me, I think.
Yeah.
And especially in this situation. And he was like, I just didn't know how to do it. So I've obviously like waited and I just like didn't know like where you were, you know, like with, I could have been dating someone else or whatever. Which I did, like went on dates. I did all that after like months and months after. But I remember getting that text and just being like, that's what you, it's like that moment where you're like, I guess I got everything I wanted because
Right.
I got whatever option I wanted to move forward. But it took me probably, I would say 3 months or so from that initial time to agree to get back together with him into a relationship.
It's so interesting that he was your first heartbreak because I wonder, I mean, that's so different in terms of, I wonder how many people out there got back together with their first heartbreak because it hits different. I did.
It's different. And I think, but I also met him when I was 26.
Right.
You know what I mean? I had my first heartbreak at 29.
Yeah.
I had just turned 29. So, or I was turning 29 that month.
Well, that's, I think what is so scary to think about because I'm like, if the first guy who broke my heart when I was, 29, like I probably would marry him after. And I don't know if for me that would have been a good thing, you know? So for you, like deciding you were going to take him back 3 months into him pursuing you, how do you manage the PR crisis of your family, your friends, like
the social media aspect of it?
But especially, I mean, for me, it would be my mom. She'd be like, absolutely fucking not. Like he broke up with you.
Yeah. My friends, so I'm very particular and I'm very careful, I would say. And I'm very intentional, especially when it comes to men, because I don't spend a lot of my time talking to men. Like I just like generally don't like them a lot of the time. So my family and my friends do trust my judgment.
Yeah.
And they know that I'm not like gonna waste my time, particularly at 30 years old. I was about to turn 30 when we got back together. And I do want to have kids, and I've been very particular about that. And like the timing of that is important to me, which is why it kind of took us a while to get back together. Because I was like, I'm not fucking around. Like if we're getting back together, there's gonna be so many things I need to see and we need to talk about. And my body is gonna have to physically trust you again. Like my gut is gonna have to trust you. And I didn't know if that was gonna happen or not. I had to give myself time to kind of like live in that.
Trust that he wouldn't end it again, or trust that he would be faithful, or just like,
I would say end it again. I always trusted that he would be faithful in the beginning, but I think when someone switches up like that, like ending it, you kind of question everything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Totally. You're like
under a microscope, you know?
And then you look back and you're like, wait, that one time that he was at the bar, like I didn't hear like what was actually going down that night, you know, especially in the last 2 weeks before the breakup, you're like, what the fuck?
What was he doing?
Yeah. I totally agree.
It was a lot.
And recently you were ring shopping.
I was ring shopping
in one of your vlogs.
So this is so interesting to me because people will ask me questions on the internet or make assumptions, like the Reddit threads that happened when we were breaking up. People trying to figure out if we were broken up. I gave it a while because I didn't want to make like a statement for a while. And I came out like probably 2 months after it happened because we had still been living together for a while. But I would say I'm open on the internet. I didn't want to say it as it was happening. I'm noticing that with TikTok. There's a lot of girls who are like pretty young here in New York specifically who will like, they'll have a breakup and the next morning they'll be on TikTok and be like, we broke up. And I'm like, I wanted to give myself time to like reflect on that experience before I shared about it. You know what I mean? And I still cared about this person and his family follows me, his friends follow me. I didn't want to be like a dickhead about it or just be emotional, I wouldn't say. But I'm not also the person that comes out and says like, if I do a vlog and I'm ring shopping, my vlog literally will be like, a week in Chicago. And I'm like, I will update people consistently on the podcast or on YouTube or whatever, but I'm never like marketing that I'm doing that. Like we
Yeah.
broke up, I had a full breakup chat and people were still trying to figure out if we were broken up. I'm like, you could just watch the vlog, but I don't title it like breakup talk. You know what I mean?
Right.
I
So
just
they
talk
have
about
to
what's
be
happening.
they have to be like sleuths if they
Yes.
really want to know.
They have to just follow. I just
Yeah.
genuinely share my life.
Right. So like if they're a genuine follower who
They'll know.
cares about you, they'll know.
And
But
there's
like
nothing to like figure out. I literally am like, we broke up, this happened. I'm very, very, very direct and straightforward about it.
Totally.
I will say, like I said though, with this breakup, I did wait like probably 2 months, a month after he left to even acknowledge it.
But I think that's fair with anything, right? Like when I got sober, I waited to share it. When, you know, I went through IVF, I waited to, because you don't know what the result is going to be.
You don't know.
And you could always go back and change your mind. You want to give yourself the opportunity to do that without judgment.
And you want to do it in a way like, at some point it became too obvious. Like he was following girls on social media and people were like, oh my God, like they definitely broke up because like I just don't. I have a thing with the following. Like it's not that if the guy is following girls, I would never ever date him. It's that I will not have a boyfriend who is following a bunch of other girls on social media. So like if I say, hey, I would never be your girlfriend if you're following all these girls, it doesn't mean like I would never be your girlfriend. It means you need to go unfollow those girls. And
if
then
you want
I would
me to be your girlfriend.
You
when you got back together, did you have him unfollow people?
Oh, it was like, if you followed anyone, you know my rules. Like we're not going to be in a relationship ever at any point. You're not going to say, are you going to be my girlfriend? And I say yes, and you're still following these people. Like you better come prepared, which means the following's cleared out. We have a very clear plan for our future. Basically the following is just something to make me comfortable and appease me. Similar with like having his location or something. Like it's just like when someone puts up a fight about those things, it does make me consider, okay, what are you doing? Like it's like a little bit of a red flag.
I hear you, but just to play devil's advocate, I'm like, if you trust him fully, who cares where he is location-wise? And who cares if he followed a girl? Maybe it's his new teammate's wife.
Well, that did happen too. There were some girls that I was like, I thought it was like a bunch of girls and it's like his friend's girlfriend or whatever it is. I do trust him, but I don't think I trust anyone that much in my entire life. You know what I mean? I have his location really because it's convenient now when he's always at the field. I can like know when I can FaceTime him. If I see him up at the field somewhere, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not going to FaceTime him right now. Or like at post game, I'm like, where is he? How far away is he? But my point with the location is like, if I say, hey, can I have your location for convenience? And someone puts up a fight about it, then I'm like, that's kind of sketchy. Like, what are you hiding?
I hear you, but if you were my boyfriend or husband and you asked me to share my location, I'd be like, no.
Oh no, I don't have anything to hide personally.
Not because I have anything to hide though, because it's like not sexy for you to see that like I've been like in a public bathroom for 30 minutes.
Well,
you know,
I can't see that specifically.
But
I'm okay with this location thing, and I kind of just like, I think especially at 30, everyone has their own boundaries, and I try hard not to like. I kind of advocate for this. If something makes you uncomfortable and you are traditionally like a sane person, like you trust yourself. If something makes me uncomfortable and that's a boundary for me for X, Y, and Z reasons.
I agree.
I just like, that's what I like. And if he was really offended by that boundary, I don't think we'd be dating because we don't.
Right. If he's turned off by your boundary, then he shouldn't be with you to begin with.
Then I wouldn't date him.
And I actually really like and respect that. And I think that all women should have their limits and they might be different than other women's and there's no judgment of either, but you know yourself and what makes you feel icky.
Exactly. And like, I think, with the location thing in particular, I think it can look crazy or whatever it is, but if something makes me uncomfortable and we just got off the phone because I went out last night here in New York and I asked him, I was like, does it make you uncomfortable? Like when I go out, even though knowing that like I'm the first one to be like, I live in Milwaukee with my boyfriend, like we're talking about it. But I was like, does it make you feel uncomfortable? And he's like, I don't know, actually. And I'm like, well, if you feel uncomfortable, you need to tell me. Because that's valid. You're allowed to feel whatever. And I have to move forward knowing through my life that this thing might make you uncomfortable. I just had never really even thought about it because I'm not like doing anything wrong.
Right.
But if he felt uncomfortable by it again, if that was a boundary for him, I'd really have to obviously consider that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So you moved to Milwaukee for him.
I moved to Milwaukee. I was in LA for the year that we were broken up. And then for the 3 months when we were like getting back together, we had some very specific conversations, obviously about the ring, about all these things. I did say like, I'm just like unsexy about it. I will say like, I'm very much like, this is what I want and this is when I want it. And here's the ring that I want. So I just was very direct with him for months and months. And then we were like, all right, well, The season was starting. I had a dog. I have a dog. And I was like trying to decide if I wanted to live in LA again or if I wanted to move in with him. And I was like, okay, we got back together. We were long distance for like 3 months at this point. And I was like, I am 30 years old. Like, let's figure out if this relationship like genuinely is going to work. So I ended up moving to Milwaukee. I'm there like a lot, I would say. I'll come out here a lot or I'm here for the month, for example, right now. Or I'll go to LA and stuff like that if I need to get out. But yeah.
When you move for a man, how do you maintain your identity completely independent of them? And I think you're really a great example of this because you have your podcast, Note to Self, you have your own income. But I think it's hard. And actually, I was watching the tennis and like Taylor Fritz's girlfriend, Morgan, love her, obsessed with her. And she does a great job of like doing her own thing. Like she like, you know, did a class at this Pilates place with like her girls who like support her. You know, she did a lot of things while she was in town to support him. And I was like, that's cool. Like I would do that if I were in her position.
I think maintaining independence for me is something that like keeps my relationship going. I'm a very independent person. So honestly, it was hard for me to be in a relationship at all in the beginning and like trust someone to show up for me because I just like am hyper independent, which I have had enough therapy to understand like why that is. Morgan's actually very interesting because Morgan, I know her pretty well. And if you ever like watch her YouTube videos and stuff, she'll be in like the cities that Taylor's playing in and she's like doing her whole thing. She's going to the museums and he's like always doing his tennis stuff and practicing whatever. And it's similar to how me and Joe work. Like the baseball season is brutal. And I think of any other sport, they play basically every day. So like we all are on an app for this, in particular, this team. And we can see when like the buses are leaving the hotel with the guys on it to go up to the field. And it's probably like 5 hours before the game starts. They go up and they do like a bunch of whatever rehabilitation they need to do. They have batting practice, they're shagging batting practice, they have their meetings. Maybe they'll do a lift or something even, and then they'll play in a 3-hour game. So they're like always busy. Right. So typically like I don't necessarily travel with him all the time. This team does make it easy because they let you fly back with them on the chartered plane. So that's been nice because I've been able to go places more. When I do travel with him though, I try to like make it a fun thing. I'll go to the cities like Houston where all my best friends, I'm from Texas, quote unquote from Texas. So I'd go to Houston or like he had some games in Boston. I had never been to Boston, so I was walking around Boston doing my own thing. Obviously, anything in LA or New York, I'll always go to those or Chicago, and I'll always connect with friends or whatever, and like bring a friend to the game or something like that. But I've tried to make it like a fun experience for me, so I'm not just like sitting at the hotel. You know what I mean?
Right.
Milwaukee's been a little tougher to meet friends. It's just a smaller place, and there's not a lot of people who do, for example, like my job. So I think in most cities I've been able to easily make friends. Milwaukee, I've made friends with some of the wives and girlfriends, but a lot of them don't even live there too. So it's just typically me and my dog.
Yeah.
But work helps. Work does help with that.
Yeah. No, totally. I imagine that it does. And then a question that came up, which I thought was really interesting, like now when you guys have minor arguments, which everyone in a couple does, like after getting back together, are they triggering because you're like, are you leaving, you know?
That's a great question because at first I struggle with that a lot. And that's kind of something I think on his end, I did explain that to him and why. So I can see why it'd be frustrating for him, but he did understand, you know what I mean? And we, again, in that 3-month period, when we were getting back together, when I tell you every conversation we had, which was every day, it was a new question. It was, how are you not going to do this? Hey, you're triggering me right now. Can you understand why you're triggering me? And I don't want to make you the bad. Like, you can't be in like jail forever. You know what I mean? Like at some point I do need to move forward and decide to trust him or not. But like for a while there, I was very triggered and I had to like really look inward, but also he had to work with me and be like, okay, I can understand why that would trigger you. You know what I mean? And I expected that of him.
Yeah. I think it's normal like to take it slow if you're gonna get back together, which like, I'm just gonna be honest because my listeners know this. Like, I'm not for getting back together with an ex.
Yes.
But that's because both the times I didn't go well. And
it was obvious why y'all broke up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it. For sure.
But if you're gonna do it, like tell us your rules for getting back together with an ex.
I think you need to definitely go through the not talking phase. And I'm not saying do that for a month, do that for 3 months, because 3 months in, you're still in pain and you're still like reeling to get back together. Whether it's your ego or you really just are in love with this person. That happened to me with guys. I had dated 2 guys before Joe, but I was never like, we broke up and it wasn't like a true heartbreak. You know what I mean?
Right.
But even 3 months after those, I'm like, returning to something familiar is really
Feels good.
enticing. Yeah.
Totally.
And like you want to do that. So I would say you give it enough time to where you're having those thoughts of like, okay, I could move on. You know what I mean? I gave it enough time before I even started talking to other guys. And then I talked to other guys. And I went out there and I was like, all right, you're really moving on. We're really jiving with this. So I would say give it enough time. We were broken up for basically all of 2023. And again, like I said, we didn't really speak at all for 9 months and he was muted. It wasn't a back and forth DM situation. Like there was no liking of stories. Like it was just, we were very separate. And I think that's the most important thing is to, if someone wants to break up with you, give them that breakup. You know what I mean? And really lean in, like really act like we're moving on, we're moving forward. And then I would say when someone comes back, focus on why y'all broke up. You know what I mean? Like there's some things I could never get back together with him after. Like if I found out he was cheating, I just forever will not. In my brain, I'd be nervous all the time. So like that's not the quality of life I would like to live. But this I had to decide, like, one, can you trust him again? So I would say give yourself time, acknowledge why you broke up, acknowledge it to them, and say, what is our plan for this never happening again? And I think for us specifically, it was like a lack of communication and understanding. So he was feeling things about our relationship that he never shared with me.
Yeah.
So then by the end of it, he was like, I thought it was obvious that we were going to break up because we had been fighting or arguing or whatever. And I'm like, I was perceiving these things so differently than you. And he wasn't communicating properly. That's what it came down to. So I needed him to say, I wasn't communicating properly. And here's how I'm going to change that. And here are the steps we're going to take next time. Or we do like weekly, we had done in the beginning, like weekly check-ins of like, okay, where are you truly? Because he's very much like he's a very sweet, like charming guy. He's like the baby of the family. He wants everyone to have a good time. He doesn't want to ruin the mood or anything like that. So he's the kind of person who will just go along with me being overbearing, for example. And I don't realize that I'm pressing on his boundaries, but I don't even know it because I'm just like, whatever, like, you're a man, listen to me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I had to listen to him as well. And we had to come up with a plan to just handle things differently. But then that plan needs to be implemented and like, you actually need to see it in action.
Right.
So for us, we needed to go through some arguments or something like that. And I needed to see him physically be uncomfortable that he's communicating so much. You know what I mean? Like it needed to be, he was asking me questions. I was asking him questions. Things were awkward. Things were uncomfortable. These are conversations we don't want to have, but we need to. And I need to see how he acted during that. So it's the identification of this is why we broke up and what's our plan to change it. And then actually seeing that change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like being all talk is no good. But if there's action, yeah.
Yes.
I
and
agree.
I will say at first I kind of, when I talked about getting back together with an ex, I did like an episode on it. But I was like, I feel weird doing it because I waited a few months into our relationship to talk about it. But I felt weird doing it because I think that I was trying to figure out like, when do I determine that we have successfully
right.
done this? Like, is it when we're married? But like, you could also get divorced.
Yeah. So
maybe it was like
all you can talk about is your like experience now
and how I feel.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and if you're still feeling good about it, which you obviously are.
I am. I think we got to that point. Like by the time I had moved to Milwaukee, we were pretty much like,
I mean,
we were great.
No one moves to Milwaukee for nothing.
No. I also moved there sight unseen. Had never seen the place.
It's crazy.
Moved in the middle of a snowstorm too, like the last of the whole year. I moved from Beverly Hills.
Yeah, that's love. Well, you
Milwaukee.
better be getting a stunning ring as a result.
The one I've chosen is really nice, but I did ask him to not. I want to get engaged somewhere that means something to us. He bought a house in Florida for the off season, and I was like, I would like to get engaged on my own couch in my own home. Like I don't want to do it somewhere you
really
played
nice.
for 6 months. You know what I mean?
I like that.
But I'm very again specific. Like that's what I said. This is the ring I want.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy this couch and we're going to be in our own house.
You know what I mean? Set it up. Set him up to win, honey.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so we usually end with like rapid fire poll questions, but instead I'm going to tailor it to rapid fire breakup questions.
Okay.
So I guess like we'll do kosher or not kosher.
Okay.
Kosher to tell each other about hookups in the in-between.
Depends on what the other person wants to know. You know, I think there's an extent like I didn't want to know about hookups, but I didn't want to know if you went on dates.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
kosher. I just want to be because I don't want to like be somewhere and like what if I see this person?
Yeah,
I look
yeah, yeah,
stupid
yeah.
now.
Yeah, fair.
I would think he would say not kosher, but
Yeah,
he didn't want
yeah.
to know. But everyone has their own like opinion. You know what I mean?
Kosher, not kosher to see their camera roll in the in-between.
I don't see any reason for that, but
Right.
not kosher. I don't think you don't want to like get your feelings hurt.
Yeah, yeah,
About
yeah.
something irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Kosher or not kosher to have to do some sort of thing to like woo the parents again.
Not kosher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because like it's about you and not them.
Well, I also think like how my parents act, like they were obviously annoyed with the way that things ended because they care about me, but they also know him really well. My friends are the
Mhm.
same way. So like they trust me though. So they know
Right.
like, okay, if Peyton's making this decision, like she fucking thought about this.
Right, right,
So
right.
I expect his family or friends to also respect him. That's a sign to me that he like makes smart decisions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally. Kosher or not kosher to have how long you've dated be from the first relationship on. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As instead of the next one.
I mean, I would say not. I don't know. That one's hard.
Yeah.
Because I usually say we've dated for 3 years because we're now a little above that, but we broke up at 2.5 years.
Right.
Took a year off. So I wouldn't say like we've been dating for 4.
Right. No, I think 3 is
years.
perfect. It's
Yeah,
like,
I'll
you
be
know,
like,
2
I'll
plus
say
1.
around 3.
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
if anyone asks any other details, I'm like, well, then we broke up, you know, the whole thing.
Totally. Kosher, not kosher to have each other's phone password.
Kosher.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we
agree.
always do that.
That's a must.
Mm-hmm.
And kosher, not kosher to talk about like scary future things like divorce and how
Yeah.
like, you know, when you go through a breakup and now you're talking about marriage, like do you have to have those future conversations?
Absolutely. And I would say that you probably have to have those before you get back together.
Yeah.
Very specifically. Because
Mhm.
I was very specific about that one.
And last but not least, kosher, not kosher to share finances once you get back together with someone.
I don't personally believe in sharing finances until marriage because I just
Mhm.
think you have like more protections.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't do it right now, but once I get married, obviously, yeah, I would do it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. This was so much fun.
Yeah.
Payton, can you leave us with a quote or piece of advice, something that's helped you, or maybe something that the girls need to hear if they're considering getting back together or anything like that?
I would say I talked to a girl about this last night. Actually, I was asking her what her type is, and she was like, "Well, you know, like I don't want to say like I do want like a hot guy," and I'm like, "Listen, whatever you want, build up your dream man in your head, and don't be afraid to like say that's what you want. Whether you're going through a breakup or getting back together, don't be afraid to be like." You did this and it made me feel this way and I hate feeling that way and I need you to do this now. Like being direct and saying what you want, I think it's such a powerful part of being a woman.
Yeah.
And it's attractive, I will say, especially for the right guys. Like if a guy is turned off by that, I'm like, okay, we just would never work.
Yeah,
like it just won't happen.
Like a beta.
But I want you to like, I want everyone to just own themselves. That's what we talk a lot about in Note to Self is knowing yourself and then owning that and being like, this is what I want. And if you can't provide that for me, whether it's a relationship romantically, a friendship, a family relationship, then like I need to protect my peace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
But I want women to say what they want, like literally with their full chest.
I love that. Where can everyone find you and follow you? And by the way, Peyton's TikTok is amazing. Like sometimes I'm like, I love your TikTok content so much. I'm like, you should put it on your Instagram too. You inspired me to do the like vote for me. This is my platform.
Yes,
it was hilarious.
I love that trend. That was fun. So you can find me on social media, across social media at Paytain Sartain. It looks like Sartain, but it's Sartain. Then you can find me at Note to Self by Paytain Sartain. It's also a Dear Media podcast.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.